Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though. got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though. Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, got me locked in on cup though.
Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Warner, but Boromant's got the inside.
Brings me a guest star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that perfect lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name.
Hello everybody, welcome back to PSGL. It is Britain time, and obviously as resident Brits, we're very happy about that. I'm back, took a week off, had some stuff to do. Alex was here the entire time, said it was a banger last week. Why don't you tell us more about it?
It was. Declan Barrett got the strategy right last week, had a lovely one. I'm sure he'll be very pleased with that and is going to carry a lot of momentum into this weekend. But yeah, we saw lots of lovely fights through the pack last week. So yeah, hoping to see more today. Obviously, Britain is a very iconic circuit in F1. It is the home back from the first race. I think it was 1950 or something like that. So yeah, very excited.
Yes, as am I, and we won't waste too much time actually. We've got drivers coming out of the pit lane onto the laps already. Let's just hop on into it. Let's not give you much camera time today. Let's get into the racing. It's Bogdan Moldovan out on track, at least for me at the moment. Plenty of other drivers also out on the circuit. How do you feel about this track from a setup perspective? Do you think, a difficult track to set the car up for? In the sense that obviously it's a lot of high-speed corners, but at the same time you need to get the rotation down in some of these earlier and final sectors. So where do you think you sit on car setup? Is it a compromise or is it just flat out?
Yeah, it's definitely a compromise. There's obviously the mix of low and high speed corners, although I would say it is more in the lower downforce range, maybe about, I don't know, if you want to go in terms of wings, 10 to 20, depending on how confident you are as a driver, maybe. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I would guess. Especially when you've got such powerful straights, such as Hangar Straight. If you have the DRS and a good run on Hangar Straight, the amount of speed you will have is absolutely crazy. So it is definitely, setup's going to be a big factor for sure, and I think we'll see more lower wing setups.
Excuse me. All right. Okay then. Let's see these lower wing setups in action. First person onto a lap, Fionn McKee. Let's see if the Irishman has got anything up his sleeve. It's not really been the start to the season I think Fionn would have wanted. A couple of bad results, I think. A bit of misfortune, if I remember correctly, in the first race of the season too. But we'll see whether that can be a bit of redemption here at the Silverstone circuit. So far, so good. The lap looks tidy. Obviously, when you're the first person out on circuit, it always is going to be purple sectors for you. But so far, the lap looks at least relatively clean. I think it maybe have been a little bit wide there at Brooklands, but coming into Copse Corner now, pretty much flat on this game. I'm not totally sure exactly if people are lifting ever so slightly. I think it maybe depends on the track condition. But so far, it looks awfully committed here from Fionn. And it's only looking like it's going to get even quicker. There is a car in the way, but thankfully that hasn't disrupted them too much. Now just moving on down the Hangar Straight in towards Stowe. So far, definitely looking like a good lap for everybody else to chase on down. Stowe looks good. Very easy to invalidate there, by the way. Track limits have often washed a few cars to a 3-second time penalty in the race. Now through the Vale chicane and into the final corner before the Hamilton Straight. And this lap time is going to be a 24.8. That's the benchmark. That's what people have got to beat. And right away, Kuba Tresiak is going to come in just a bit behind that one. And who else is yet to still cross the line? I think we've got a few more drivers hopping on in. Cameron Dowds just a couple of thousandths behind his teammate. Thomas Laminen coming in as well, starting in third place. So that actually looks to be a fairly strong lap time from Fionn McKee until Jack Lav hops in with a 24.781.
Yeah, good few benchmarks there. Yeah, as you said, track limits on some of these high-speed corners, Copse, Stowe, so easy to invalidate. They're so easy to get a warning, so definitely something to look out for in the race. It's something that will definitely catch people out. In the meantime, other people who are on a lap, at least quick guys, championship leader, Drake Dempsey, I believe, is on a flying lap at the moment. He's definitely one to look out for at the moment. As I said, championship leader. So it's very important to see what he's going to do. Louis Welsh, meanwhile, has gone P2. Only a couple hundredths behind his teammates. And meanwhile, Nelson Alves immediately beating that with a 24.708. Meanwhile, Drake Dempsey coming towards Vale, now braking, trying to clip the inside curb as much as possible, but not going on the sausage curb before getting the exit onto Vale. So important to get the traction, get the power down, and what's he going to do? Only good enough for P13. Not what I would have expected, to be honest, from Drake Dempsey. He's been quite quick so far, so definitely not what he wanted. But his teammate is, in the meantime, in provisional first place.
Yes, indeed. Drake Dempsey, actually the winner of our first race out, if I'm not mistaken, and current championship leader. after 2 rounds. So 15th place is really not where we'd expect the American to be. So hopefully looking for a little bit more from him on his next lap. Maybe just got a little bit of it wrong. But yeah, so far, I guess, session going about as expected. Couple of the usual suspects that are starting to enter the stage, really, as main protagonists for this season. Liam Stevens, one of those guys, as a main protagonist, I would suggest. Currently sits in P2. Been a bit of a staple of F3 for a while now, last season and now this one, and has also been picking up a couple better results this season too. I think he sits 3rd, off the top of my head, in Championship. Maybe a fact checker can help me with that one, but off the top of my head, 3rd place is where Liam Stevens currently is. So this isn't looking like all too bad of a start to the season for the Brit, and I think it's going to be a good Championship battle. There's no one person clearly running away with it at present.
Yeah, I mean that's what you want to see. I mean it's top tier esports, sim racing, whatever you want to call it. But it's always incredibly close, which is always good to see, and we can see that through the pack right now. I mean, you've got drivers separated by thousandths or 2 thousandths of a second. So yeah, it's a really good to see, I think, in terms of excitement, and definitely something to enjoy. So in the meantime, I believe everyone apart from Tony Ritchie, I'm gonna assume is how you pronounce that, has done a lap. Riche? I'm not 100% sure, but he has invalidated, I think, his flying lap, so he's come into the pits. But apart from that, not a bad set of bankers. It's not as close as I think we've seen before. Probably because I think Silverstone's a very cornery circuit. There's a lot of places to gain or lose time.
Well,
so yeah,
to be fair, it is like 0.3 of a second all the way down to P14, and I know we're saying like, oh, that's not very close. By F3 standards, that's not close, ladies and gents. Just to be clear, we have high expectations here. We've had it within a couple of hundredths really for the top 3 to 5 before. So yeah, I think measure your expectations slightly differently here for F3.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we've seen the whole field separated by like a few tenths this season, I think. So that's definitely the aim for all these drivers. But you are right, to be fair. There's only 2 drivers that haven't done that. So yeah, it's an interesting thing to see. I'm sure those guys probably made mistakes on their laps and will be improving. In the meantime, we do have drivers coming out to start their second lap of hopefully 3, if they have the time and if they don't mess up. So, I mean, leader of the pack is Fionn McKee. I think he set the first lap time as well. So, going out again, just fuel burning as he comes through Beckett's towards Chapel. So, currently sitting on a 24.811, only 1,000th behind Louis Welsh. Not too much time that he has to find to gain a position. But obviously, when you guys are going as quick as you can, it's difficult to improve even more. But we'll see. He is just over a tenth away from provisional pole as well. So he's definitely going to have his sights set on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you say, just a 1,000th off Louis Welsh at the moment, 10th away from pole position. Definitely an achievable lap time with the track ramping up. So through Club Corner he comes, onto the Hamilton Straight to start his second flying lap. We'll hop on board for it, shall we? We can see just how close he is to the apexes here. And now just absolutely smashing the car through the Abbey and Farm complex, up through Chapel now before he hops onto the Wellington Straight and Village. Just here, beautiful. Really nice start to the lap here from Fionn McKee. Now onto the Wellington Straight. I think Brooklands is actually a very tough braking zone because you kind of brake and turn in ever so slightly and then run it out wide to get it turned back in right, but keep it tight. Maybe a double apex really for Luffield. Maybe a tad wide of that one. Could have got on the power a little bit later and kept the car in tighter, but lap still looks good here for Fionn McKee as he makes his way now down the old pit straight in towards Copse. Oh, a slight lift, I think, but not really anything that's going to hamper his lap all by too much. Now, into the famous, the legendary Maggots, Beckett's corners. Absolutely huge amounts of G's are pulled here in real life, but in the sim, still feels quick, still feels awesome as he exits onto the Hangar Straight. 0.04 of a second up on his previous best time, so not going to be improving here as he comes into Stowe. A tad wide of the apex, but keeps it tidy on track limits on the exit. Traffic everywhere as he comes into the Vale chicane. Manages to avoid all of it. Just need to get the exit now on club, and you can make a hell of a load of time if you get it right. So for Fionn McKee crossing the line, it's not going to be an improvement, actually, Alex. Ends up missing out by 18 thousandths of a second.
Yeah, no time. Obviously, I say no time. It's barely any time there that he's off. But as we said, once you've got a quick lap, it's difficult to improve. Did Cameron Dowds just go P2? I think he did, yeah. The 24.720. So good lap from him to accelerate him into P2. Hopefully, he can carry that momentum and improve even more next lap. He's only 12 thousandths behind pole position. But in the meantime, we do still have drivers on their laps, and one of those is, oh, never mind, Miltos Karafalidis is one of those, and he goes into the 24.6s, 24.694. I was just about to say, Liam Stevens has just done a purple first sector. He's gone an entire 10th up, which would put him in provisional pole position as it stands. But yeah, a great lap from Miltos Karafalidis. We'll follow on along with Liam Stevens as he finishes his lap. We're going through Beckett's now. Exiting towards Chapel, you've got to get the power down, use all of the exit of Chapel, all the inside curve there, and he's almost 0.2 of a second up on his time. This is a mighty lap from Liam Stevens. Bogdan Moldovan, though, is also improving on his time, goes provisional P1 with a 24.6, and Jack Lav gets a 24.585, so we are into the 24.5s, which is insanely quick, as Liam Stevens comes to the final corner. Lou Welsh does a 24.539 to go pole position, and Liam Stevens does a 24.531 to go into provisional pole position. We've still got one more round of laps to do, but that is some very quick lap times. I think everyone, well, at least the top 6, have all just improved by a 10th or almost 0.2 of a second. So looking very quick in this second half of qualifying.
Absolutely, that's our track ramping up, I think, and also drivers' confidence really starting to come with that one too. I think there are still a few drivers yet to finish their laps or coming into the pit lane, it actually more looks like. So that is going to be the end of running there, I think, for the majority of folks. I will note that Thomas Laminen is actually on an out lap here. A little bit out of sync with the rest of the field, who are all pretty much exclusively all on in laps. But that is a huge amount of improvement we've just seen there. Now, everybody is pretty much out of the 25s, apart from really Drake Dempsey and Andre Lopez, who are both still suffering with lap time. I don't quite know what's going on for Dempsey here. He's dawdling. We'll have a check back in with him in a minute. But yeah, that is a absolutely stonking lap time from Liam Stevens. And I think that's going to be a really tough one to beat. I think track's still ramping up, of course. We've got full 20 drivers here today too, which means that, of course, lots of rubber being laid down. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we might see times even dipping as far as the low 24.4s here.
Yeah, it's definitely possible. These guys are looking very quick. As I said before, I think the quicker you go, the more difficult it is to improve. So it'll definitely be a challenge, but as you said, track ramping up, track evolution is a thing. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so Thomas Laminen on an out lap, or was he on his actual lap? Has he gone back into the pits? Did you say that? Sorry if I missed that.
No, I didn't.
Well, I think everyone is either coming in or about to go out. So we do have, as you said, very quick lap times. Very difficult to beat. Yeah, we'll see what these guys can do.
Most definitely. I think that is going to be everybody into the pit lane right now. Has Drake Dempsey ran out of fuel or something, by the way? And that might be the reason why he was going so slowly, because in the pit lane he's also going extremely slowly too.
Yeah, that's fuel.
That's a weird one. You don't often see drivers running out of fuel in qualifying. Usually the car is slightly overfueled for a quali lap, to be honest.
Yeah, some circuits, I think it is just the way it is if you're running minimal fuel. Yeah, hopefully that didn't hinder whoever was behind him too much. There's plenty of time left.
Yeah, still plenty of time left, so I don't think anybody will be too upset. But here at the end, really, the business end now of this short qualifying session, we're going to have to wait and see. Every driver is in the pit lane, and I think one of them has just left. Who is that who has blinked first and is making their way out of the pit lane? I will put my house on it being Fionn McKee, and I'm right. It is indeed Fionn McKee. First out for every one of the runs so far. A Williams in hot pursuit. Is that Skither? Yes, it is. So Fionn McKee wants to go for his outlap first, wants to make sure that he is completely unimpeded by every other car, and is basically trying to draw everybody out of the pit lane so they all filter in behind him on circuit and don't get in his way. So making sure that any yellow flags or crashes or anything like that might impede him, or cars on the racing line, he's trying to avoid it as best he can. So Fionn McKee lay down the gauntlet early on in this session, but going to need to pick that gauntlet back up, try and strike back here.
Yep. Currently mid-pack. Definitely going to want to improve from that. But I mean, as we said, considering how close it is, pretty much any time you gain is likely to be a position. Although he does have 900ths of a second in front of him, which is quite a large amount, I think, compared to other gaps that we've seen. But yeah, we'll see what he can do. Obviously, we don't know how he feels about his runs. Maybe like, he feels that it's the fastest he could go. Maybe he feels he made a mistake. Yeah, definitely it'd be interesting to see what him and all the other drivers can do about their times. See if they can improve enough. I mean, the track evolution is gonna have a big impact on these times. So we'll see the effects. When there's lots of high-speed corners, finding grip on high-speed corners is massive in terms of time gain. So it's definitely something to look out for. In the meantime, Phil McKee, about to start his final flying lap of the session, is going to hook it around, try and get the best exit he can. Obviously, it's a flat-out run all the way towards Farm, I think the corner is.
Yeah,
Farm Village. Anyway, going through Abbey now towards Farm as we see the braking zone braking as late as possible. One of those corners, sorry, one of those corners which you can really send it in. You see drivers braking as late as possible. Slightly missed an apex there, but trying to use all the curb on the exit there as he goes into the Wellington straight. Now heading towards Brooklands, as you said, turning while braking. It's a tricky braking zone, one that you kind of have to almost figure out mid-corner as he goes through Luffield now. Trying to get the slingshot exit here to try and get the power as quickly as possible. I think he got a slight snap of oversteer there, but I don't think that hindered his time too much as he approaches cops now. Got to get the turn in right on this one. You can't go over the inside curb because it will then send you over the exit curb and that will invalidate, but he doesn't. He does hook it around nicely. Going towards Maggots now. Again, one that you got to hook exactly perfectly to try and maximize the lap time, and he exits Beckett through Chapel now. Not Chapel even. No, it's Chapel. Anyway, I got the corner names next to me. I'm trying to learn them. Anyway, through Hanger straight, heading towards Stowe, the final high-speed corner. Really trying to maximise everything, keeping it on the track and not invalidating as he heads towards the chicane. The final corner on the circuit, club corner. He's got to get the power down now to try and maximise everything. And he goes P4 with a 24.615, a strong lap time. I think he'll be quite happy with that.
Yeah, certainly a competitive lap time, but there's one man who's looking to push the envelope even further away from these guys here. Liam Stevens now looking to try and cross the line. Oh, gets it all wrong. Over the sausage curb at the club corner, and it spits his Ferrari into the pit lane wall. Now, his lap is done. His run is over. There's one man or a couple of men potentially here that can try and lay jeopardy to his time. Louis Welch, not going to be able to. Bogdan Moldovan, not going to be able to. Miltos Karafalidis, really the last person who's shown any kind of form in this session, is the only one who might be able to dethrone Liam Stevens as he comes through club, catches a clip of the sausage curb, but it's not too bad, and Karafalidis can't even usurp him at the top of the timing sheets. That is one hell of a qualifying session. It almost seems that from this final run, nobody's found any more time on the track. It's exactly like you said, Alex. It's just once you've gone so quick, there's not really that much time that you can find. I do want to highlight one thing, though. Your championship leader, Drake Dempsey, starts from 17th.
Yeah, not the qualifying he would have been hoping for. But yeah, I don't know what happened on that final lap. No one can improve, and a bunch of people made mistakes. But there is your qualifying order, your grid for the race. Liam Stevens gets his pole position by 9,000ths of a second from Louis Welsh, followed by Jack Labb, Bogdan Moldovan, Phil McKee, Dowds, Fabos, Alves, Karafalidis, Skither, Kuba, Humphreys, Hall, Laminen, Miklovic, Marquez, Dempsey, Lopez, Morowiak, and Riche rounding off the grid. Yeah, very close between a number of those drivers there, so definitely an exciting thing to see. Also, when drivers mess up their final qualifying laps, you know that some of them are going to be slightly out of position.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll definitely see what that brings.
Got a good race on the cards here, folks. Join us after this little break as we'll come back with the race. Welcome back, everybody. It's wet here at Silverstone. It is very wet here at Silverstone. This is going to be one heck of a race with all of these wet conditions. And I know it doesn't look like it's going to end up dry either. From what I'm being told, it's wet and it's wet throughout. So that is going to play a huge factor in this race. Keeping the car on the road, keeping the lap times consistent. And I think we might have seen in qualifying the effects of some wet setups in preparation. Anyway, here we go. Off the marks as the red lights go out. Here we are off to the races. And straight away, it's a really good start for Liam Stevens. He's managed to get ahead of both Alpha Tauris and keeps it very, very pointy. No accidents so far for the first few corners. Everybody seems to be keeping it okay. Couple of changes in position. But at the moment, everybody's made it through into the first braking zone, it would seem. A little bit of bumping and grinding going on towards the backs here. On the full wets, you're not going to have much grip in these opening laps.
Yeah, no, pretty clean start overall. As you said, a bit of bumping. I think Jack Humphries got squeezed a bit. Also seeing a bunch of people go wide as well as they're just trying to get the throttle down. Benny Fable's currently under attack.
Louis Welch up the inside of Liam Stevens at the front. Sorry to cut you off, Alex, but this is it. They immediately race lead being exchanged, chopped and changed, as Louis Welch just looks to have like a lot of grip here at the start of this Grand Prix. He's looking to try and get in the wheel tracks now behind Liam Stevens, but I think Liam Stevens turning on the battery a bit there as they head towards Copse. And now that's a big collision at the back. I think that's Drake Dempsey out of the session. That's going to bring out the safety car, as a matter of fact. He and Benny Farbos have come to blows, and that has taken them both out of the race on the exit. I think that's Woodcut, actually, they've come to a collision at there. They're not even at Luffield. They're a bit further down. I think they've just gone into each other at Woodcut. So, as such, that's going to leave both of those guys out. Your championship leader scoring no points today, and his championship rivals currently sit in P1 and P2.
Yeah, my guess was at the exit. Maybe they're going side by side. Just lost a bit of grip trying to get the power down. But yeah, that is your championship leader. Obviously, it's only 2 races, so championship leader isn't necessarily the biggest deal. But I'm going to say it is, and that is going to be a big loss for him. Absolutely no points on the table today. But yeah, Liam Stevens just able to defend from Louis Welch here. Now we've got a safety car as well, so... Yeah, neutralizes everything. Everyone's going to be bunched up again. There is a few changes in the pack. Primoz Miklovic and Tony Richer and Andre Lopez all gaining quite a lot of positions on that opening lap. So props to them. The top 3 still stay, top 4 even, staying the same. So yeah, Louis Welch did look like he had a lot of excess grip though that he could use to potentially get past Liam Stevens in the latter stages of this race. So yeah, we've got an exciting race on our hands. Being full wet, everyone's going to be dawdling around the track, trying to keep it clean, whilst at the same time trying to make overtakes, which is always really exciting to see.
It's always very sketchy in the wet as well, because you can get a bit of oversteer at a moment's notice. The car can also wash out from under you a little bit too. You get a bit of understeer, you're going to start driving essentially into the car that's on your outside. So overtakes have to be done very, very cleanly, and also with I think there's no wet time trial still in this game, so very difficult to practice full wet weather racing on the most part for a lot of these guys and driving in the wet conditions. So it might be something we see a relative amount of inexperience at, and especially if people are not using wet setups, they will certainly be suffering in these full wet conditions. So we might be seeing a bit of that too. Big differences in setup potentially with the wet weather. And that might have a big influence on how this race comes to transpire. I think Louis Welch looked at immediately on the get-go that he had a bit more grip with his setup than Liam Stevens out ahead of him. But I think maybe it's too early to call that for sure. Just looks that way from the start.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the collision there that we had between Drake Dempsey and Benny Fabos, it does highlight how difficult side-by-side wet racing can be. I mean, I don't know exactly what happened, but yeah, when you've got no grip and you're going side by side, you've got to be extra careful. And just then, clearly, or at least one of the 2 of them or both of them weren't. So definitely something to look for. Nathan Richards, I did see that in the chat. Drake Dempsey was not happy at the collision between those 2. So. I mean, I suppose when you are fighting for the championship, you're going to be annoyed, but yeah, I think it really highlights how careful these guys have got to be, because you can really go from hero to zero if you're not careful. So I would like to see how that affects how much the guys ahead properly hard race each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. And as they say, I think in all those accident commercials you get on TV, where there is a blame, there is a claim. So potentially there, if it is Benny Fabos' fault, as Drake Dempsey seems to be making it out to be, maybe a penalty or some description coming for Benny next week. We'll see. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves with those stewarding decisions. Often collisions that happen like that in the wet are racing incidents and nothing more really. I think also, as I've just been kind of like cue retrievals, just pinged into my brain seeing that happen. Louis Welch weaving a little bit down the straight. Tyre temperature is exceptionally important in this year's game. And I don't quite know, through lack of experience really, maybe you can shed some light on this for me, how much tyre temperature you realistically need or end up losing in these wet conditions with the full wet tyres on.
That's a great question, and I don't have much experience either, so I can't really tell you. I'm gonna guess. I'm probably gonna say something completely wrong, but I'm gonna guess tire temperatures. Obviously, they're gonna be lower than they are in the dry. That's pretty much common sense. But then these tires are also built for that. So I don't think tire temperature will be as much of a factor as it is when they're in the dry, unless of course they overheat too much. In that case, you'll have no grip.
Right.
But I think because it's in the wet, I don't think it'll be too big of a factor.
Yeah, I'm just thinking here because on the safety car restart, which is about to happen, by the way, those with the most temperature in their tyre might be finding themselves a little bit more grip. That's usually the logic, the prescribed wisdom in dry conditions. But whether that is the case here in the wet, we are about to find out as these cars now just weave their way gently behind Liam Stevens down that hanger straight. They're going to have just a couple more corners in this final sector to go. Of course, the pit entrance is not really where the final few corners are. So Liam Stevens, when does he elect to pull the pin in that Ferrari? He is being hounded by those two AlphaTauris behind. When is he going to make the decision? When is he going to make that breakaway from the field at the moment? Still weaving frantically as they get in towards the Vale chicane. To be honest, you might as well leave it as late as you can. Now through Vale, it looks like he's really started to put the power down. Now he's got to be careful through Club that he doesn't lose the car as he did in qualifying, and he's made it through quite nicely. Louis Welch seemingly not caught napping, I would say, but just a little bit sleepy. Just has to wipe the sleep out of his eyes here as he now barrels it into the village complex and all this section of corners coming up ahead here to try and get back onto the back of Liam Stevens. Of course, overtaking may also be a little bit more difficult here in the wet conditions. No DRS, of course, when there is wet weather on the circuit. Yeah.
So Louis Welch at the safety car restart there didn't look like he had as much confidence on the throttle on the exit as Liam Stevens. Oh, as he's gone across the rear there and he's gone wide through Brooklands, and that's going to potentially allow Jack Lav, his teammate, through, and I think he's going to have to be fighting with Bogdan Moldovan as they almost go 3 wide on the exit there, down towards the old start-finish straight. But Louis Welch has dropped to P3. He was looking fairly quick, but now obviously that's going to be compromised, and he does not leave Moldovan any space there. Moldovan does get pushed off and does have to lift off, and has subsequently gone wide at Cops and lost the position to Cameron Dowd. So Cameron Dowd now up into P4, but Louis Welch very important there as he's now lost a position. So yeah, driving in the wet weather, very difficult. You've got to be on the edge constantly. And now Louis Welch has suffered a position loss because of that. I suppose the silver lining of that is it's his teammate ahead of him. So if those guys are communicating in any sort of voice chat and Louis Welch does feel significantly faster, they can always be swapped around again. But the big thing about that is there's now time lost to Liam Stevens, as I think Jack Lav has also gone wide there. I think these guys are really struggling with the braking, and now Cameron Dowd is going to try and have a look down the inside of Louis Welch, and he also does get a snap of oversteer. Jack Lav is also struggling ahead of those guys, and we'll see what happens as they go through Abbey now side by side. Cameron Dowd's subsequently now into P3, so Louis Welch losing 2 positions in the window of about a lap, but Jack Lav as well now in front of Cameron Dowd. Cameron Dowd is looking very racy. Not really seeing him lose the car too much compared to the other guys, but in the meantime Liam Stevens is extending his gap ahead, so there is big implications of these guys fighting. But yeah, they just seem like they can't control the car as Louis Welch goes wide again. I think he might have slightly outbraked himself following Cameron Dowd's there. But these guys have just got to kind of take a deep breath and try and find a rhymthm, because at the moment they're struggling on almost every corner, and Liam Stevens is just running away with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugely running away with it, by the way. It's a question of, like, when the mistakes start happening and everybody starts tripping over each other, it just allows the one person who doesn't have to worry about any of that just to get away. And now currently extending his gap to a 2-second lead with everybody else behind him taking chunks out of each other, just absolutely scrapping like two dudes outside of a nightclub. They are just having the worst possible time back here in these wet conditions. Cameron Dowds, though, thinks, well, at least looks like he's having an absolutely great time of things. He pulls to the inside on the entry to Stowe, just to show a wheel to Jack Lav. And now up the inside he comes into the Vale chicane, tries to outbrake the tie in towards the left-right, but the quick switchback from the Alpha Tauri, and then even quicker on the inside through Club. Both these cars struggling for grip. Huge snap of oversteer for Dowds. I think Lav had to get out the throttle a little bit there to avoid collecting him down the Hamilton straight. Now into Abbey, both these guys still continuing this little fracas in towards the village section, the farm and village section. A little bit wide there again, struggling for grip, I think, Dowds here on the exit of village, and now really trying to just keep Jack Lav and Louis Welch now, who's rejoined the party, both at bay. I think we've lost Primoz Miklavcic towards the back of the field. Either he's had a spin or has been spun. He's tumbling down the order quite rapidly. Anyway, I think the same also true for Thomas Laminen, who has just been mugged a bit further back too. But at the front here, these guys are providing endless amounts of entertainment, and they're not done yet. I feel that this battle is only just beginning.
Yeah, Cameron Dowds looking very quick, very racy, finding grip that other people just can't find there. It was a great switchback, very brave move in the wet there. But yeah, he's now got to try and chase after Liam Stevens if he can. Hopefully the battle is not won just yet by Liam Stevens. Obviously we do still have 20 laps to go, and the gap is at 2.3 seconds. So we'll see what he can do, because he does look very quick, very comfortable in his Haas at the moment. Jack Lav is also staying with him. Obviously there's ERS usage, which is also playing into a factor. Cameron Dowds has slightly less than the guys behind him, so maybe that's why he was quick, or at least as quite a bit quicker than I think we would have expected. But Jack Lav is staying with them for now, so hopefully these guys as a pack can sort of calm it down and say, okay, you know what, we're going to try and catch up to Liam Stevens, because that's very important. Otherwise Liam Stevens is just going to run away with it. Skethers, that's the fastest lap of the race, also looking quick. He's made up 4 positions in this race already, currently sitting in P6. Skither nearly winning the opening round of the season, but just wasn't quite able to do it. We know he is a quick driver. He is in that sort of train of Moldovan, Welsh, Lav and Dowds. And then behind Skither is Nelson Alves, about second behind, so a gap starting to form, and then a further second behind him to Fionn McKee. So we do have a group forming, first the second place to 6th place, but they are closing up to Liam Stevens, which is the important thing. In the meantime, I think Moldovan and Skither were just fighting there, and I think Skither's got a good run on him, and he's using the battery as he goes towards the Old Star finisher, obviously, though it's not the best overtaking spot as we've seen in 2021, but he is still staying with Moldovan and is looking very racy.
Indeed, he is looking very racy here, and I think Skither actually looking like he's got a fair amount of pace left in reserve to try and catch up to these guys. Obviously, like you said, was a bit further back on the race restart and on the start of the race, actually up 4 places, as you mentioned. Here he goes now, looking to try and make a move as he gets a good exit off of Chapel. He's going to try and translate that into a move into the braking zone at Stowe. Looks like he's got it stopped and has managed to keep Bogdan Moldovan behind him, and now sets his sights on Louis Welch up ahead. He has cut his way through this field so far, Skither. Seemingly has a fair whack of pace here in the wet conditions. Jack Humphreys coming into the pits. I'm not sure what that's all about, whether he's taking a gamble onto the intermediates potentially. I don't think it's ready for those tyres yet. But I will say that basically everywhere that Skither has gone so far, he's left a gap in his wake and he's bridged the gaps ahead of him. So it looks like he's definitely got a bit more pace than the guys ahead of him so far. We'll see whether that can translate into this top 4.
Yeah, interesting to note. On the exit of, I think it was Club, that entire Cameron Dowds group gained about half a second on Liam Stevens. Also, Jack Lav has fallen behind, so that's interesting to note. But Skither is down the inside of Brooklands, and that's another position for him. Louis Welsh can't really do much about that. He is going to try and have a look around the outside, but ultimately it's not going to be enough. So Skither, potentially one of those, because there's quite a few drivers that put on a full wet setup in quali and is now having a sort of comeback in the race. And Skither is making excellent progress as we head through this race, but so is Cameron Dowds, who's got a second to Jack Ladd behind him, and is only a second away now from Liam Stevens, so the fight for the win is still on. Cameron Dowds, also probably one of those with the full wet setup optimized for these weather conditions, and he's looking down the gearbox of Liam Stevens. Under a second now, the gap. He is gaining and gaining. He's got the confidence, he's got the momentum, and he's going to be looking to get into first position. As Liam Stevens comes into the pits.
Yep.
That's a very early pit stop. Is that potentially for damage, or is that strategy?
I think that's for the intermediates. We just saw it there that Tony Richer has actually set the fastest lap of the race by a second on the intermediate tyres. It was a 40.8, I think. And I think I saw Jack Humphreys also pitting in for those intermediate tyres just a lap ago too. So I think we're about to see a little bit of a gamble here on strategy for a few of these guys. Louis Welsh, Liam Stevens, all coming into the pit lane here. You've also got Franek Moraviak behind too, dropping into the pit lane for these intermediate, these green tyres. Let's see whether they are going to be able to provide some more grip on this track. Let's see whether it's going to be a gamble that will pay off and whether they can go to the end of the race on this compound or whether it's going to continue to dry up even further. Generally, what happens is you start the race on the wet tyres, they disperse enough water for these intermediate tyres to be good on the racing line, and it's just about grippy enough for these tyres to get switched on. But that's the problem. If you can't get these intermediate tyres switched on, you will be, as they say, stuck up a certainly named creek without a paddle.
Yeah, that's a very big gamble by all those drivers who have boxed now. So, it depends when it gets dry, how quickly it gets dry. If it gets dry quite quickly, going from the wets, full wets to the dries, shouldn't be too bad of a way to go. But if it is a long crossover period, or if it ends in this light rain, the inters are going to be the way to go, and this undercut is going to be incredibly powerful. Who was it? It was Tony Rees who got the fastest lap by about a second, considering that was to Skiller before, who was currently in third place. It's definitely a quick lap time, and you got to just think what drivers like Liam Stevens and Lou Welsh can now do on this tyre. So if Cameron Dowes responds, and he doesn't, he does stay out. Jack does pit though, and a couple of others behind him, but it's a purple middle sector for Liam Stevens. So those inters are definitely quicker than the full wets. It's just about whether drivers are going to actually choose to switch or not. But this undercut is going to be so powerful.
Yeah, this is a banging lap so far from Liam Stevens. He came out of the pit lane, I think, 14 seconds behind Miklavčić, and as such now finds himself just a meager 10 seconds, I think, behind. He's gained so much time on Miklavčić in this lap alone. And if that is a true representation of the tyre delta between these two cars and between these two tyres, I think we'll be seeing everybody getting into the pit lane. As he sets the gauntlet down now, that's surely going to be putting the fear of God into Cameron Dowds and Skither up front. They maybe realise here that they have taken this gamble to stay out on these wet tyres, and it might not be paying off for them here, as it's a 40.1, fastest lap of the race here for Liam Stevens. He is eating away at the gap between him as the leading intermediate runner and the leading wet runners now. Primož Miklavčić currently sits 8 seconds in his way. He's got his sights set and he is on the charge. The grip, the time that he's gaining through those long radius corners of Brooklands and Luffield. He gained over a second in just those two corners. Let's keep an eye on that delta between these fast corners here of Copse, Maggots, Beckett's and Chapel, just to see how much more grip he has on these tyres. It's 3/10 nearly out of just Copse alone. It's got to be time now for all these guys to come into the pit lane.
Yeah, as I said, it just depends on the crossover period. Cameron Dowds is going to be incredibly scared, but we have seen him, the fact that he really likes the overcut, and he is going to come into the pits now. Skither's staying out, but Cameron Dowds is into the box, and now he's going to feel the pain of staying out those 2 extra laps. But as I was saying, he really likes the overcut. We've seen it cost him in previous races, so hopefully it won't do too much damage today. But I mean, where is Liam Stevens? He's coming through the final corner now. Cameron Dowes has just put the new tyres on and is going to be exiting the pit lane, but he has lost the lead as expected. Well, he will at least, and Liam Stevens just coming through the start-finish straight sets the fastest lap, and that is Cameron Dowes losing quite a lot of time that he wouldn't have gained if he'd just followed Liam Stevens into the pits. And he's going to be behind Tony Reich, but I don't think it'll take him long to get past, as he is. We know he's a very quick driver. But he's behind Jack Lav and Louis Welsh now. But we do have those drivers, as I said, like Tony Reich and Jack Humphreys, who've sort of just, they've almost just inserted themselves in this battle by boxing for the Inters at an earlier time. But Cameron Dowds is going to go down the inside of Brooklands, down the inside of Tony Reich, to try and get the position, and he does it, and so does Bogdan Moldovan, who is still on the wets, also getting a position there. I think he's just pitted onto the wets.
I think he has, yeah.
That must be a mistake.
Yeah.
Very unfortunate for him. Yeah, God, you got to feel for him, honestly. It's so easy of a mistake to do, and that's cost them potentially an entire pit stop. But yeah, we'll see what the weather does to here. What the weather does from here. Unfortunately, the game still hasn't given us spectator mode to have weather, which is really annoying because we can't, we don't know what's going to happen. But Skiller is also into the pits up ahead now. But yeah, it does give us, I suppose, almost a surprise, which these drivers don't have. But Skiller into the box now. He's going to be feeling the wrath of the overcuts and Thomas Laminen spinning on those wet tyres. So clearly they are not doing him any justice. Liam Stevens now up into P5 is just extending that gap even more, and he was being caught before, but now he's just extending the gap over everyone and is looking very, very quick.
Yes, he is indeed. It no longer looks like, from my perspective, that it's raining sideways like it was earlier in the race. Liam Stevens, though, getting a little bit tasty there, with Primoz Miklavcic, as they have a little bit of a bump as they come out of Village. That is going to be a little bit tight, and now down the front straight, he's going to be passing his Ferrari teammate Andre Lopez too. Harlan Marquise has retired from the session. That is inside of the pit lane as far as I can tell, so that shouldn't be cause for a safety car or a virtual safety car or anything like that. As it is then, Liam Stevens is going to be surely the race leader at this stage in the race. Fionn McKee out front on 11-lap-old wet tyres. That gap is going to be obliterated within the course of this lap, I imagine. We'll see what it comes down to. It was 10 seconds as we came into Copse. Already, we're down to 9.7. We'll see just how far it can fall.
Yeah, we'll see. Liam Stevens looking very comfortable out there. If you look at the gap, it's to Louis Welsh, his next rival, it is 4 seconds. Which is a significant improvement. He is absolutely flying on these intermediate tyres. The rain also looks like it's getting lighter, very much lighter from what it was only a few laps ago. So potentially a dry end to this race would be another twist in the tail to see what happens from there. Primoz Miklavcic gets a 5 second for speeding. Normally that means he's about to retire, so if so, that's unfortunate, although he might have also just sped. Cameron Dowds, though, setting the fastest lap of the race. There is some moves behind, as I think, it's just getting past wet runners, Cameron Dowds and Louis Welsh there. I think Thomas got pushed off a bit there, which is not nice to see. Jack Lav going down the inside of Jack Humphreys, though, getting everyone mixed up. But he's going to try and get around the outside of the loop, and he gets a bit of oversteer on the exit, which have cost him any position that he would have potentially gained, and quite a bit of time as well. But yeah, in the meantime, these guys are just sort of overtaking all the intermediates, all the wet runners. Meanwhile, Cameron Dowds and Louis Welsh are fighting as they also try and get past Andre Lopez. So yeah, overtaking the wet runners. It's like overtaking about this time they're allowed to fight back. So, oh my goodness, Andre Lopez going very wide there, almost pushing Louis Welsh off the track there. But yeah, no, Andre Lopez losing a bunch of positions now on those wet tyres. They're clearly not quick. So yeah, Liam Stevens, though, that's gained him so much time, that fighting between Cameron Dowds, Louis Welsh and Andre Lopez. So yeah, a gap of about 6 seconds between those guys.
Yeah, I think it's so far looking like Liam Stevens has played the absolute masterstroke inside of this race here. Of course, we're only 13 laps in, halfway through the race now, and there's plenty of time for anything to happen. Like, for example, Louis Welsh exceeding track limits for the 3rd time this race and picking himself up a 3-second time penalty to go with that. And as such, he's got Jack Humphreys just bearing down on him and now beaming past him. through goes Jack Humphreys, who started this race 8 positions back from where he currently is. He's now up into P4, which surely at some time or another is going to end up being P3, a podium position, because Fionn McKee, I don't think, is going to be long for this world on those wet tyres, especially as this track seems to be gripping up more and more. Those full wets are going to be on fire relatively soon.
Yeah, not looking good for him. Unless he's waiting out for the dry. That's the only reason I think anyone would still be staying out. But yeah, no, it's going to cost him so much time. I just want to know the weather, man. That's what, if we knew the weather, it'd make so much more sense to what these guys are doing. But yeah, I guess we're going to deal with it. So, Cameron Dowles is going to try and chase down Liam Stevens. He's done it before. Can he do it again? He's got 2 laps fresher tyres. I'm not sure how significant that is in terms of the intermediates, as I said before, as you said as well, the lack of experience. We don't really know exactly what's going to go on. But he has gained about 3/10, 2/10 this lap already. So he is looking quick, Cameron Dowles. So yeah, the chase is on. He gained about 2 seconds before. He's got to gain 6 seconds this time. And he's got about 12 laps to do it. So that's going to be, what, half a second a lap that he's got to do. And to be fair, I think at the moment he's pretty much done that. So we'll see what happens towards the end of this race. In the meantime, Liam Stevens has caught Fionn McKee and is pretty much pushing him round club corner. And that's cost him a lot of time there. It's a complete roadblock for Fionn McKee. And he's having to brake completely going into turn 1. But he's going to get past pretty comfortably now as they go through farm. But yeah, that's cost him about a second to Cameron Dowdes. Cameron Dowdes is going to be thanking Fionn McKee, and you know what? That is Cameron Dowdes' teammate, so I assume that's going to be on purpose. But the gap is only 3.8 seconds now, so that has completely helped him in this chase, and that has put a new light on this. We're definitely going to see a battle between these guys if he can catch up at the rate that he was doing last lap.
Yeah, absolutely. But you've got to remember that Cameron Dowles are still yet to get past Fionn McKee. And if they aren't being cooperative teammates, like is so often the case here in PSGL, I think it could be quite likely that we see Fionn McKee give Cameron Dowles a taste of the same medicine right here. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. I think Liam Stevens still in a great position. That gap is still what? What are we looking at here for that gap overall? 3-4 seconds back to Cameron Dowles. Yeah, it's still looking good here for Fionn. Jack Humphreys, of course, still in a relatively good position, but it's Jack Lav and Louis Welch who've been having issues, and I think Louis Welch having more issues and being spun round by Nelson Alves and Skither, I think, there on either side of him. He was the middle of that sandwich, and as such has really come out with the short straw, unfortunately for Louis Welch, the man who looked so good through qualifying in the start of this race. It's all fallen away from him as he now is in 10th place with a 3-second time penalty. A car's bearing down on him from behind too with fresher intermediates. That is not where Louis Welch wanted to find himself at the end of this race day. But in the end, it is going to be Cameron Dowdes flying past Fionn McKee, getting him at the right part of the track and not being held up at all. That is the exact best case scenario for Cameron Dowdes as he now sets his sights on the Ferrari ahead.
Yeah, just confirmed in chat. It is going to be the light rain for the rest of this race, if that's to be believed. So that... yeah, I don't know why they'd stay out on the full wets in that case, but they've chosen to. Whether the Inters will actually go to the end is also something to take note. There's yellow flags in Sector 1. Not sure what's happened there. Yeah, Cameron Dowdes, 2.8 seconds away. So yeah, Fionn McKee really getting in the way there. That's very much helped Cameron Dowdes. So now it's just Cameron's job. Can he continue this momentum of gaining time? And I think he has this lap. Still gaining time on the Ferrari. So... hopefully he does, because obviously we all want to see the battle. We want to see the battle in wet conditions for the win, but Cameron Dowdes is looking in a really strong position. Obviously, so is Liam Stevens. Having a 2-second gap is also massive, but it's coming down fairly quickly, to be honest. It's now only 2 seconds from about 2.5 seconds only a few moments ago. In fact, now it's 1.8 seconds. That is big time gained by Cameron Dowdes. It's almost as if Liam Stevens is on the wets. Maybe that's to do with the setup. If Liam Stevens had a more of a drier setup, I don't exactly know, but Cameron Dowdes looking very comfortable now as he's gained another 2/10 in this lap, and I'm sure he's going to gain even more around this final corner. So whether that's tyre deg or setup, don't exactly know, but Cameron Dowdes looking mighty quick as it's at 1.3 seconds now shortly he'll be within, well, I say DRS range, but obviously there's no DRS. He'll be within a second, and you can really start thinking about the overtake. They are both pretty much equal on ERS as well, about 10% difference in Liam Stevens' favour. But yeah, Cameron Dowds is looking mighty quick. He wants to win. I'm pretty sure this is home Grand Prix, so I think it's the same with Liam Stevens as well, though. They both want to win at home. And I think at the moment we have like a complete British podium, which would be cool at the British Grand Prix. But Cameron Dowds is looking very quick. The gap is at a second now. So I think everyone's eyes will be peeled on this. Fionn McKee as well, getting in the way of Jack Lamb and Skither behind him. As I think Skither's now gotten to P4 from that. So he's had a really good comeback drive starting, what was it, down in P10. So yeah, big props to him. And now it's just a case of looking at Cameron Dowds because the gap is only 8/10. So it is really coming down at a rate of knots. Fionn McKee very much helps speed that up a lot. But Cameron Dowds can now... Oh my goodness, that was a horrible voice crack. Cameron Dowds can now start thinking about the overtake.
Indeed, he can. 0.6 of a second. Liam Stevens is going to be sat there in his car wondering, where the hell did my gap go? It was 6 seconds a lap ago, or a couple of laps ago. Now it's down to 0.6. You mean to say that I've lost all that time? And indeed, Liam, you have. You've got to drive the socks off this Ferrari right now in order to keep this gap, keep this lead. It is going to stabilise a little bit as now you get a little bit of aero wash off the back of the Ferrari at this kind of range, but it's still not going to be as significant as it has been on previous F1 titles. And now Cameron Dowds, he's looked mercurial this whole race long. I'd have thought that he was using loads of battery in order to chase down Liam Stevens, but you mentioned it. They hadn't really used that much themselves. They were basically on the same ERS percentage. So this right here, this is the race win. This is the battle we're going to keep our eyes on for the next 8 laps or so. Primoz Michalčič behind really far back down in P12 is setting constantly faster and faster laps. And they are drivers who have all pitted for another set of intermediates in all of this fray. So up the front, though, this gap holding a little bit more stable. Maybe Liam Stevens was just driving within his limits to make sure that the mistakes didn't come while he was out front by himself. But now he's got to take those risks. Now he has to fight a little bit more here with Cameron Dowds. He'll probably be using a little bit more of his tyres, a little bit more of his battery, just a little bit more of everything, really. Cameron Dowds doesn't care, though. Look at the time gain through this sector, through these faster corners. He's just got so much more grip. Looks like he's got a little bit more downforce on the car. And then now down the straight, we'll see whether that is true, whether the slipstream will come into effect, whether Cameron Dowds will pull out of the slipstream and make a move here on Liam Stevens. Liam goes defensive round the outside at Stowe. It'll be a brave move if he tries to make it stick, but it's not to be this time around. The Ferrari places his car beautifully, and it's a dart back to the outside again here at the Vale chicane. Cameron Dowds takes the lead temporarily, cuts it back on the inside, runs Stevens wide out to the curb here at Club, and now Stevens will look for the cutback as they head down the Hamilton straight in towards Abbey. Is there anything left in this Ferrari for Stevens to mount a comeback? Not through Abbey. What about into Farm? At the moment, they're both still in each other's wheel tracks, now into the braking zone. Stevens not able to make up any of that time, really struggling to find the traction on the exit of the corner as well now through Village. Really struggling, losing another 0.2 of a second. It's up to 0.4 now. I think Cameron Dowds has made it stick. He's made it work, and he is going to be your race leader. He's going to hold this one down, and now it's going to be a question as to whether Liam Stevens can stick with him until maybe a mistake is made, or maybe he can mount an attack. Further back, though, Skither has just made a move on Jack Humphreys into Brooklands. We've seen him make that move so many times already this race, and it seems it is absolutely textbook here for Skither. What pace does he have on these intermediate tyres? Can he potentially crunch a gap, as we saw Cameron Dowds do just a few laps ago?
Hello?
Hello, are you here?
Sorry, I think my PC just froze a second. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, a great move by Cameron Dowds there, getting into the lead of the race. And yeah, now it's all about extending that gap. Liam Stevens is all about closing that gap, and at least maintaining the gap until further on in this race. Cameron Dowds losing a lot of battery to just try and extend the gap. But yeah, Skither looking very quick in the Williams. He's got the freshest tyres out of the top, in fact, or everyone pretty much, all the way down to P9. I'm sure he's got a lot of pace in him as well, and he's going to be trying to catch Liam Stevens to try and disrupt this battle for the first 2 positions. So We're in lap 20. We have about 5.5 laps to go. Or a bit more than a half, but roughly that. It's all about what these guys are going to do now. Pretty much a sprint from here to the end. No one's going to box again unless it's for damage, I don't think, because only 6 laps left. There's not really any point. But Cameron Dow's extending that gap ahead. He's looking mighty quick today. Didn't have the best qualifying, but has completely turned that around in the race. He's going to be very happy with how it's gone so far. He's leading with about a 6/10 gap. So yeah, a lot to work with. We don't have too long left for Liam Stevens to try and challenge that, but he is losing time. They're both using battery. Liam Stevens does have a bit more, but they are both using it fairly equally. So yeah, Liam Stevens not in the prime position, not in that comfortable 6 seconds gap he had before now. He's now got to do the chasing himself and try and get past Cameron Dow's. I'm sure he's got pace in him. He took pole position. We know he's a quick driver, so we've still got time to go, and we'll see what happens.
Indeed we will. I'll keep the telemetry up for a little bit of a while on this next few laps here, just to see where these guys are using the battery and how much they're using. Liam Stevens actually used a massive chunk of his. He had such an advantage on ERS, but felt that he was probably slipping a little bit too far away from Dowds here in the wetter conditions, and now is just struggling for that battery about the same that Dowds is. But we'll see where they elect to deploy it, where they feel they're under pressure. For Dowds, it's here down the Hamilton straight. Wants to try and get a little bit more pace away from Liam Stevens, and he too has been deploying his battery a little bit there as well. Slipstream helps you out a lot more in these wet conditions too, by the way. With no DRS active, you need to make sure you're trying to stick in those wheel tracks, get that slipstream to really help you out with the higher downforce you'll have on the car for the wet conditions too. Now here, you see the gap has opened up massively. Awful traction, awful corner here for Liam Stevens, and you feel that if the gap gets over a second, that might be the nail in the coffin that Cameron Dowds is looking to hammer on in. And it has got to that point now where Liam Stevens has lost that time. Cameron Dowds is going to be surely in a commanding position of this race, barring a mistake of almost astronomical proportions. So for the Ferrari driver, who's led almost every single lap of this race, has been in the most commanding of positions, he is going to fall foul at the final hurdle, it will seem, as Cameron Dowds looks like he's got this one in the bag.
Yeah, very strong there by Cameron Dow's, not really making too many, if many, mistakes at all. Liam Stevens just not able to keep with him. Don't get me wrong, Liam Stevens has also been incredibly quick today, definitely deserving of a podium of the P2, but Cameron Dow's has just completely accelerated it in the race. In the meantime, Skidder's gained about a second over the last few laps. I don't think he's gaining at a fast enough rate to actually get the position, but you've got to give him credit that he is looking very quick in the meantime. Not in the meantime, at the moment. But in the meantime, Liam Stevens is falling further back, and it's just Cameron Dowd's race to lose now. They both have pretty much run out of battery. They're both less than 10%. So it's just about Cameron Dowd's just keeping it clean, not making a mistake, and just getting to the finish line.
Yeah, there's some nonsense going on here in the pit lane. Andre Lopez is just crawling.
Oh, he's got a puncture. That's why.
Is that what this is? Right.
Yeah,
okay.
that's going to be the AI as well. That's going to be him. Yeah. So those 19-lap-old wet tyres, not able to get to the end, and poor him, because it's I don't know why the AI isn't going any faster, but he's dawdling towards the pit box.
Oh, great. Bit of a sucky situation there for Andre Lopez. I mean, it wasn't really the race that he'd have wanted anyway. He's trying to make it work on those wet tyres all the way through. Probably wasn't the best idea he had. But nonetheless, I don't think that, like you said, Skidder is going to be closing in quickly enough on Liam Stevens, barring any mistakes from Stevens up ahead. But what is nice to see is that Jack Humphreys has nearly got that 3-second gap to Jack Lav behind that he needs in order to retain P4 with that track limits penalty that he has received. So for Jack Lav, this is a great race for him. He's definitely impressed me. It's one of the first times I've seen him on track, and so far so good for the high driver. Yeah.
So about 4 laps to go of this race. Cameron Dowds has extended his gap to 2 seconds, so he's still looking quick. I think we've got a spin by Fionn McKee further back down, but he's got that going again, so don't worry, no risk of a safety car. So, there's not really too much going on. Everyone else is pretty much further apart, so quite far apart. Nelson Elves is probably the only anomaly in that case. He's less than half a second away from Frantic Moravec, who is just under a second away from Jack Lav. As you said, yeah, Jack Lav doing very well today. I think it's the first time I've seen him, unless his name has just gone completely under the radar in a couple of the other races. But yeah, no, doing very well today. So, Frantic Morawiak and Nelson Elves, the only guys really fighting at the moment, but there's still a second between those guys. So there's not really too much going on, which is probably not what many people would have expected towards the end of this race, but never mind, here we are. In terms of tyres, everyone is on the intermediates now, about 13, 14 lap olds. Obviously, some are younger, but they're all in the space of a lap, so I don't think it's too much of a big factor. So, well, yeah.
Yeah, I want to give a big shout out, by the way, to Frantic Morawiak, who has made up 13 places to get to P6 here. And by the looks of things, isn't done yet. Is setting his sights on Jack Lav to try and get that top 5 finish after, I think, qualifying second last, maybe. So that would be a huge result for him if he can get up to the back of Jack Lav and overtake Jack. But for Frantic, this is a huge result anyway. I think it really knocks your confidence when you have a poor qualifying like he had. And getting it back immediately in the race with a really strong battle back through the field, definitely looking like my driver of the day here as well, for 13 positions regained over the course of what has been inevitably a very tumultuous race for a lot of these drivers out here, with the tyre compounds changing, with the weather also being a factor in this as well. Lots of drivers don't really enjoy racing in the wet and struggle with it massively. But having said that, Morawiak just got it all wrong on the grass there, on the entrance into towards Village. And as such, he has got a 3-second time penalty and lost all of that time to Jack Lav. And he's seemingly going to be hounded here by Nelson Alves again, down the backstroke, down the Wellington Straight. And no overtake on into Brooklands, it would seem, here for Nelson Alves. But there we go. Just a quick shout out to Frantic Morawiak, I guess. It would be the one that I was just going for there. But it looks like, for the time being, the only two drivers close to each other on track are these two, Nelson Alves and Frantic Morawiak. So it'll seem that these two are going to be the only real battle for position, providing penalties don't come into effect for any collisions later on in the race.
Yeah, that's a harsh penalty. He only very slightly went wide and lost about 2 seconds from it, so I'm sure he could protest that and get it removed. And those guys will still be fighting. I mean, that's if he doesn't make any more mistakes. I think in terms of a driver of the day, I'd have to give it to Cameron Dowd, starting P6, an impressive feat in the race. And has now extended the gap to about 3 seconds to Liam Stevens. I've just got to, you got to say he's completely done it right today. The only thing, obviously, if you were to, what's the word? If you were to pick apart his race and say if there's anything you could do better, I mean, maybe the strategy. That's the only thing I'd say. But I mean, that's clearly not hindered him as he's leading the race by 3 seconds. So absolutely wonderful race. By him. We've got about 2 laps to go. We've just started lap 25, so it's all about just keeping it clean in these final few laps, or final couple of laps.
I think there is such a delta between everybody at the moment in terms of the pace that they have out on track. I think we're seeing that here exemplified with Morawiak and Nelson Alves. I think Alves doesn't really have the pace in these wet conditions to really fight with Morawiak, and as such Morawiak has just driven away from him here. And I think that's really indicative of how this race has gone on the most part for a lot of people. It's been a lot about pace. And often we don't see that so much with the DRS trains, but now with no DRS, we've really seen who is the class of the field. And the class of the field today, as you mentioned, is Cameron Dowds. He has been nothing short of exceptional in this race. His pace has been metronomic. All of his lap times, he's just only got quicker and quicker and quicker. Even with the tyres falling off, he's been continuing to extend that advantage over his competitors. And I don't think it's anything short to say that if he had gone into the pit lane at the same time as Liam Stevens, this would have been a truly crushing victory over the rest of the field too, because he is still, even now, extending that gap to the field behind. This has been a masterclass from Cameron Dowds, as he gets to now have one more trip around the legendary, the historic Silverstone circuit to really just parade this victory, drive the car home. Doesn't need any heroics, doesn't need to do anything special, just needs to keep doing what he has been doing to find a race victory One of the only things for position here on track at the moment too. Jack Lav is trying desperately to stay within that 3-second window of Jack Humphreys ahead for that 4th place. And we'll keep an eye on that one as it comes. But we're just going to watch the procession as Cameron Dowds finishes up this race here.
Yeah, you can't fault what he's done today too much. At all. I'm sure there'll be people at home cheering for him, especially his dad, who's still watching the stream. He's done really well today. It is one of those moments where you know there's not much he could have done better, and I think it's really amazing to see those sorts of drives. But he always looked comfortable. And he's done his moves really well, and he's now got a 4-second lead as he comes through Maggots and Beckett's for the final time this race. And yeah, it's going to be a good win for him, and definitely something that I think we'll see as we go through the season, see how that confidence has affected him. But yeah, a great drive today.
Yeah, an absolutely sensational drive from Cameron Dowds. He enters the final sector of this track, pulls it through Stowe. No heroics required. He's got over a 4-second lead. The gap to Jack Humphreys and Jack Lav is about 3 seconds as well. But here for Cameron Dowds, an absolutely spectacular performance in the wet at Silverstone. He wins the British Grand Prix, brings it over the line absolutely beautifully from the defeated Liam Stevens, but still a result to be proud of. Skither in P3. Jack Humphreys will look to hold on for P4. We'll find out when he crosses the line. Yes, he does, just by a 1/10 of a second by Jack Lav. Nelson Alves gets ahead of Franek Moraviak because of that 3-second time penalty. Treziak will come home in P8 by the looks of things, with Primoz Miklavčić coming home in P9 and Louis Welch picking up the final point scoring position, maybe, unless Wilson Hall can take it with the penalty applied. He can. And there it is. That's your race, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a wet race. It's been a tough race, but it has been dominated by one man in particular, Cameron Dowds.
Yep, absolutely stunning drive to take the victory there. That's going to have good championship implications for him. I'm not sure exactly where I'll put him. Obviously, that's a lot to work out right now. But sitting in... Where is he? I can't even see him. Sitting in 7th at the moment. He's about 11 points away from the championship leader. So, I mean, a win is... How many
16
points? 16. And then extra for fastest lap. I don't think he did get fastest lap. No, he didn't. But that is going to be a big gain for him compared to everyone else as well. Louis Welsh not really not scoring any points at all, and he's 2nd in the championship. So that is a gap closed. And Liam Stevens, who is 3rd in the championship, he's closing the gap towards him. So a good drive from him in terms of championship implications as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a great drive. Definitely a good one to watch.
Yeah, huge day for Liam Stevens, by the way, with those championship implications you're talking about. His 2 main rivals not scoring points today for 2 separate reasons. He will inevitably take control of the championship lead at the very top of the field and will have a decent margin in order to do so too. So a really strong performance from Liam Stevens, despite the fact that he was hunted down in these wet conditions by Cameron Dowds, who takes the race victory with Skither poaching the final podium step from Jack Humphreys. So a great race here in Silverstone today, and a really interesting one to unpack. We'll hopefully see you for the same time next week for round 4 of the PSGL Tier 3 Championship. But until then, we'll see you another time. Goodbye.
Bye.
On the left-hand side, hooks the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Jarno Opmeer now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Jan Ortmeer wins the US Grand Prix.
Cocaine in my nose, got rose in my cup though. Started climbing my pole, she got me locked in on cup though.